And we were saying like, well, if you think you're going to sell your business sometime in the next 5 to 10 years, you should be getting audits of your financials like
Right.
now. Like you don't bring in the accountants at the time of your exit where they have to
Right.
go back 3 to 5 years. Like start that process now. I have a question for you on that though, because it was one thing that you lightly touched on in the book, and I was curious if you could kind of expand on it. Is when if you think about exits from the beginning, and you do have regularly scheduled meetings to discuss a potential exit for the business, just to make sure you're aligned and you're staying good with your strategy. Do you ever have any clients of yours or any companies you've invested in that where they're identifying even at an early stage potential buyers? Like,
Sure.
yeah, so they're
Yeah.
saying like, you know what, I know we just started this business this year, we're not going to sell it anytime soon, but if we're going to sell it, we're one of our target buyers is Meta, for example.
Right.
And if that's the case, what do we need to be doing now that would make ourselves very attractive to that target buyer 5 years now? Is that a common thing to think about?
For sure. And building relationships, reaching out to them, talking to the
Yes.
corp dev leaders, talking to product managers, like finding out where they're going and where they care about and where the holes are. By the way, I'm a big believer in understanding the financial levers and the KPIs of a strategic partner. So, sort of like the Jedi mind trick is if you're working with a publicly traded company, they have a quarterly earnings call. You should be listening in on that or reading the transcripts of the quarterly earnings calls. And you should see what KPIs they're reporting on. Like what do they really care about? And you should listen in to the analysts and what questions are the analysts asking?
Mm.
And what do the analysts care about?
What if it's not publicly held? Where would you go for that information?
I would just reach out to them directly.
Okay.
And by the way, you know, we talk about like, should you be talking to your competition?
Mm.
I think you should. Like, I think you should be talking to your strategic partners. I think you should be talking to your competition. And we're not saying give away trade secrets and open up the kimono and give them financials. I'm not saying that at all. But you could be having the conversation of how do we make our industry larger? How do we grow the pie for everybody?
Mm.
Right?
Right.
And you could be perceived as a thought leader because going back to bring a gift, adding value. When I sold my first company, I sold it to Symantec in 1992. But before I sold it to Symantec, I built up over the years. Every time I went to Silicon Valley, I dropped in on Gordon Eubanks, who was the CEO at the time of Symantec. We built a relationship. We built trust. We talked about just what's happening in the industry at large.
Sure.
And so that when it was time to sell the company, I just picked up the phone to Gordon and said, hey, Gordon, I got an unsolicited offer. I wasn't planning on selling the company, but now that we're considering it, you're my first call.
Mm.
And he's like, yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, because you've had a relationship and you built that up. And by the way, although you do mention about not giving away trade secrets or whatever. Also, we all need to be careful when we're talking to competitors about potential anti-competitive regulations.
Well, of course,
obviously, and price fixing, that kind of
yes.
stuff. So yes, we grow the industry, but on a relative basis.